Hello, we are Group 3 presenting on Airborne Express and the express mail industry. The structure of the express mail industry transformed in the 1990s. As the pace of everyday business increased, the customer base of the industry expanded, increasing the volume of parcels shipped. Revenue growth failed to keep the same pace as competition drove prices down. To differentiate, a broad new range of services were introduced into the industry. These services included package tracking, logistics consulting, and the introduction of distance-based pricing. At the root of these changes was the consolidation of the industry. 3 companies, FedEx, UPS, and Airborne Express, captured 85% of the market. These companies introduced new services and pricing strategies to sweep the corners of the market in search of additional forms of revenue. As a result, many smaller companies were forced out of business. Airborne positioned itself to survive in this competitive industry by adopting the mentality that they can't be all things to all people. Part of this strategy involved targeting business customers that ship large volumes of items to other businesses while intentionally bypassing residential deliveries and infrequent shippers. Airborne prospered in the 1990s for a few specific reasons. First, they offered a tailored service to large business customers. Second, they received a small short-term boost from the recent UPS strike. And most importantly, Airborne developed a partnership with RPS, known to operate efficient ground transportation with sophisticated information technology.
In determining Airborne's sources of industry advantage, it's helpful to start first at the list prices. For all types of deliveries, including overnight morning, overnight afternoon, and second-day delivery, FedEx is more expensive than Airborne, with an average of being about 1.2 times more expensive. UPS, on the other hand, is more expensive than Airborne, except in 10-pound and 50-pound overnight afternoon deliveries and 50-pound second-day deliveries. UPS is on average 1.1 times more expensive than Airborne. As far as prices go, Airborne has the advantage of being the cheapest price in almost all cases, making them a favorable choice for consumers. In examining Airborne's cost structure in comparison to rivals, a helpful place is to estimate the costs associated with an overnight letter for Airborne. The general strategy is to determine the ratio of how much Airborne's costs were compared to FedEx cost and multiply that number by FedEx overnight letter costs. For labor, Airborne ships more parcels per stop than FedEx, reducing pickup labor costs by 20% and delivery costs by 10% compared to FedEx. Exhibits 2 and 6 show that FedEx spends about 2 times more on maintenance, so Airborne's maintenance can be reduced by that amount. For flight and trucking, it's estimated that Airborne delivers 15% more volume by truck, and since costs of a truck are about the third of an aircraft, this expense can be slightly reduced. Hub labor can be reduced around 8.2% of FedEx costs, since Airborne employs around 7,200 employees in hubs, while FedEx employs around 90,000. Exhibits 2 and 6 also show that FedEx spends about 5 times more on depreciation costs. And since Airborne doesn't advertise in mass media, that expense was reduced to 0. And since Airborne also does not invest nearly as much in information technology, that cost was reduced to a fourth. FedEx employs around 2.2 times more sales reps than Airborne, so sales cost was reduced by this much. After keeping customer service, corporate overhead, and margin the same, the total ending price results in $6.92 for Airborne. This reduced cost for an overnight letter will help Airborne continue to charge less than the competition and in turn steal consumers and gain a competitive advantage.
So why haven't FedEx and UPS simply trampled Airborne with their larger size? Well, Airborne has a set of activities that set them apart for the competition. Simply put, they haven't positioned themselves to act as the be-all, end-all for shipping. So they have a very specific customer, even turning away business that didn't align with their target marketing. They have a highly focused geographic region with 85% of their business residing in and around the top 50 metropolitan areas. So even though Airborne could handle the overnight express parcels, most of the business was actually afternoon or 2-day service. So why are UPS and FedEx letting Airborne control 16% of the market? And it's essentially due to these factors that have been mentioned. They're not trying to be the best at everything. They're trying to be good enough for their customers. Airborne's largely ignored the growing residential market and the burgeoning B2C model. And with FedEx and UPS's broad differentiation strategy, they can't operate at Airborne's prices, which is demonstrated by the fact that they're capturing 70% of the market without having to compete on price. And additionally, FedEx and UPS can glean innovations from Airborne's development, such as their warehousing service that both FedEx and UPS began offering just within a few years after Airborne. So how do we safeguard against the future? First is with a merger with RPS. When RPS came onto the scene, they pioneered barcoding, and they've really made inroads into that ground shipping. And so a formal alliance in the form of a merger allows Airborne to not only move into spaces where they can realize competitive advantage, but also helps them gain those marginal efficiencies. And combining RPS and Airborne's core competencies creates a singular experience for their customers. Using Airborne's for rent warehouse space allows them to provide valuable fulfillment services to the large clients, with RPS performing both first and last mile services. And secondly, they should lean into these market changes. By switching to a distance-based pricing, they make their margins not completely dependent on distance between origin and destination, and using sales discounts to offset any price hikes for more profitable accounts. With globalization becoming prevalent, they need to be watching very closely what FedEx and UPS are doing, because if they wait too late or invest too little, they're going to be perpetually playing catch-up in this new market segment. And then additionally, with small and medium business sectors, Airborne can use a conscientious targeting methodology to identify accounts that do frequent business along their existing routes and channels that will allow them to onboard additional accounts with reduced marginal costs.